A challenge we are facing as a federation is lack of gender parity within our governing bodies on high level and on lower level, but also within management. There are definitely efforts made, but are we doing enough, or is it more to be done? That's the topic of today's discussion. Now let me introduce two exciting colleagues, two persons with the power to influence. First of all, very welcome to Stockholm, the President of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, Mr. Francesco Rocca. Thank you. Equally welcome, the President of the Swedish Red Cross, Ms. Margareta Wahlström.
Thank you.
The floor will be yours. We are opening up for a discussion between you two. But let me kick off by asking, when it comes to representation, how important is equal presence of women in decision-making bodies on its own and looking at it from a gender perspective? Please, Mr. Rocca.
It's something extremely important. I think when we talk about to work with the communities, to read the needs of the communities, to be able to engage with the communities, then when it comes to the bodies that should implement these abilities, and you have this lack of representation, so that means that you have a very strong lack in sensibilities, in different approaches, in different way to read the needs and to interact with the communities. So it's the real nature of the Red Cross, Red Crescent family, the Red Cross, Red Crescent movement that urge us to do something to fix this gap, because it's a sad reality that we are facing this lack of parity in too many national societies. At international level, of course, we discussed that we have these two strong resolutions that came out after the last General Assembly and the Council of Delegates in Antalya.
In addition, I would say, because of course I agree with that perspective, but also it's well understood that mixed groups that are mixed, gender balanced, different people take better decisions because they have more perspectives. So we can also definitely put the aim at, in this way we can develop and improve in many contexts our performance as organizations. Plus, I think for our external partners, the public, the donors, partner organizations, to see that the federation, as we talk about, all the bottom levels, volunteers, junior staff, they are majority women. So of course we would like to see the same reflection of the base of the organization at the highest level. So it has to do with, basically it's good business, I think, to have a strong balance representation at the top level and at all levels. But for the time being, I think we are seeing most progress at the lower level and not enough progress at the higher level.
Yeah, I think that's this is a deep truth, and I would add that we are a mirror. But historically, we are a mirror of the society. So for us, it's the same challenge that now we are discussing everywhere in the political life, in the business life. So now it's time for a change, and first of all, for an organization that, as I said, wants to engage with the communities. So this is extremely important.
But when it comes to taking better decisions, if you try to be a little bit more specific, imagine that we have a more balanced representation. What, if you try to be more concrete, what do you foresee? What would be the benefits?
360 degrees. So when the more the society is represented, the more you are able to read and detect the dynamics and the needs. So it's to be concrete, then is something that I'm honestly in this moment I'm not able to give an example because everything is related to our ability to read. So now it's quite arrogant in saying an all male or all women board can read all the needs and the dynamics of their society. So it is important to mix it, to have different sensibilities together. So it's more about the perspective to have a concrete vision of our future, where we are going, and it's not only about one sensibilities. So and to do this, and I congratulate also the Swedish Red Cross. It is important to have gender and diversity. This is the reason why the step forward made by the Swedish Red Cross on diversity is something that we have to do also in the federation. Now we are talking about the gender issue because this is the top priority, but why the Swedish Red Cross decided to do this? Just to be able to read the dynamic in a society that is changing. Absolutely. And so they're open to the diversity. And we are a step beyond, because it's important for us to reach the gender parity. This is something that I hope with the next election we can make an important step forward.
I'll give you a concrete example of something that I saw just a few years ago, in fact. You know, in the 90s and late 80s, we worked a lot on standards on how we do business and for example, how to make sure that in refugee camps and settlements, all the parts of the population have their needs addressed. But just a few years ago, I was in a settlement for displaced people from a major disaster, and I found, frankly, to my horror, that these good standards that we have established since 20 years, at least 25 years, protected spaces for women that are lactating babies, good protected spaces for women to go to the toilets in the night, good protected quiet places for elderly people. And the thing that really disturbed me even most, I would say, is for persons with disabilities, because they had built very nice houses, but there was no ramp, for example, to take up wheelchairs and facilitate for people to move. This is in a country which typically all the volunteers and organizers at the local level are women, everywhere. But the higher you go up in the ranks in the disaster management system, so that when you come to policy and decision making management, it's less than 20%, and when you come to the top level, it's only 2% women. And this, I think, will change, because women will think about women's need. They will not forget it. The men know. It's not that they aren't knowledgeable, they help to develop the policies, but for them it's easy to forget. Because of speed, we have to set it up quickly, we'll deal with it later, etc. So these are very concrete things, I think, that you can see, which we actually have to take responsibility for.
But what is it that really prevents us from reaching a more balanced situation in management and governance? What are the main obstacles?
I think, to be very frank, there is it's not a problem within the organization itself. It's a problem of the society. In many places, in too many places, we pay a price to the legacy of the historical mood and the way the people live, the tradition, cultures, so in which women have no spaces. And this is something that we must remember when we work for dignity of the people. This is something that we have to support the national society also in dealing, because they could lead by example in their own civil society. So it's important, and this is the reason why we are working with some measure that we want to adopt, and in a few minutes we will discuss about it, but to adopt concrete measures to fix it. So for me, the problem is not about the civil society. It is very strange because, as I said in several occasions, this is a movement that born on the will of the women of Castiglione delle Stiviere. So, and there are a lot of jokes and stories about who inspires who. If Dunan was inspired by them, or as he said, with a big ego, that they were inspired by him in saying tutti fratelli and taking care of everyone. But looking at our tradition, and being an Italian, so knowing a bit better the Italian costume and traditions, the women were those who were taking care of the wounded always. So it's, I think that he was inspired by the way they were acting. So it is important to remind to the entire movement how important is the role, where we born and how we born, who inspired us, and being able to spread this message all over the world. But I think time has come for imperative measure. So there, because for something it is important that we have maybe the champions in mediation, negotiation. This is part of the Red Cross, Red Crescent life. But when it comes to this principle, time has come, there is no negotiation. We have to establish clear rules, mandatory rules for the statutes. Too often we are focused only on the administrative side of our life. Are you in arrears with your payment to the federation? Are you do you fit with the financial criteria? Let's work on the gender parity. Let's work on the youth engagement. These are aspects that must become mandatory to be a well functioning national society.
We normally say there are traditions, it's historical context, it's social context, it's organizational context, and it's also women's own disposition, limitations that we create for ourselves. But taking charge of all this, as you already said, there's a lot of external pressure and changes everywhere in the world right now. And I think for us, we need to work both respecting the environment, but also encouraging and driving and setting a standard for our own organization. And in the way we do that is, as often when it comes to change, the leadership needs to take the lead. If the president says we have to do this, maybe not everyone agree, but they will be less likely to tell you than if it comes from the side or in the inside. So we need to drive from the top. We need to work with, because it requires also a lot of good human resources practices. It's also to be blind to the gender when it comes to recruitment, and help. There are good sort of instruments to do that. And the third aspect we need to work on is the motivation of women to step forward. Is to really motivate, to encourage, to get support for them, because we cannot vote for them, but we can equip them with the skills, the aspiration and the ambition to do that. So there are different ways we work with this in different settings.
Yeah. But how can you get everyone to sort of own the agenda? How to persuade people? I imagine that some people might feel threatened when we raise this issue of gender balance.
Look, we are a volunteers-based organization, so in principles no one should feel threatened. But then we are human beings with all the strengths, but also the weaknesses point of all the human beings. So it could be that someone feel in this way. What we have to admit in our movement is something, because if you look at the history and the image of the Red Cross family, then Red Cross, Red Crescent, why I'm talking for a while Red Cross family, then it increased also the image of Red Crescent. But if you look at the Red Cross, Red Crescent image in the history, it was, look, the women is the one who represent the Red Cross, the nurses, but we have to admit that this was a false representation, because many of the women that were the image of the Red Cross in many national society, they were part of members of the prominent families of the country, yes. Royal families, and they were able to cover this gap, this deep gap that we have in our societies. So now time has come. Now we are running after the change because we are a bit old-fashioned. We have to admit. If you visit some national society, there are a lot of women working, but because these were the role of the women. So it's not because there is a respect of the role of the gender parity, of the gender equity, but because it's part of an old legacy. So there is a trick also in this, in which we must pay attention about how the society is respecting not the Red Cross, but the role of the women in the society. Because the women, the wife or the daughters of the most prominent families are representing the Red Cross. They are doing volunteerism for the poorest of the country, etc., etc. This is something now that we are not blind anymore. Everything is under our eyes. Change is forcing us finally, and lucky us, to move forward. And I think we have to use this momentum.
I think it's a very good perspective, because in any way we need to change as an organization.
Of course.
And so we can actually change many things and make this part of also shifting the image of the organization, where we actually have women leaders also at the highest level that are not there because of legacy or tradition, but actually carried by their own aspirations and their own leadership abilities. So, and I think this, of course, I don't need to underline how important it is, but I also think it will be so beneficial for the Federation if in 4 years and 8 years everyone can see this change around us from the outside, but also from the inside. I don't know if you remember this young woman who said in the 2017 General Assembly, she said, "This is the most encouraging moment in my life as a Red Cross volunteer. You have no idea how much this means for me to see this resolution passed," she said. So she felt maybe for the first time that space was opening up in a serious way with the political commitment of the entire Federation leadership.
But now we will challenge this point, the political commitment of the General Assembly in the next one.
Absolutely.
We are going to discuss the constitutional changes, because after the resolution we are working hard to present some amendments in the next General Assembly. So I hope that we will
they will stand up to the test.
The same spirit that we had. Everyone was clapping. Then now it's time to
show
verify.
the cards.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes.
We are talking about being a mirror of society, or a mirror of the world. Could you measure all the national societies from the same criteria, or is it more linked to culture, traditions, and so on? What do you think about that?
Of course not. You cannot use the same criteria. It would be unfair. Is the way we work, that's our spirit, our commitment must be always the same in dealing with all the national society. But then it's up to us to understand the different dynamic, unfortunately the different role of the women in the society in some country, and starting from that point, it's supporting, as I said, the national society of that country in which the women are having a difficult role in the society to improve and to scale up, but concretely supporting. Because then only having mandatory measures, sometimes the tradition and the legacies are stronger than our mandatory administrative measure. So this is something now we will be able to deal and to engage, identifying, and this is also the role of Margareta and this network, identifying the right leaders that can support leaders. That means they are able to engage other people, other women in following this path. But it's the concrete cases we have to work national society by national society.
And also, there are societies like the picture we just looked at, where there's close to zero, and there are societies where there are societies like ours where there are more women than men at the governance level. So you actually we have to set our aspiration well, but we also have to realize and support the fact that we will move at different pace along that line, and work together really to make it happen, because it's the societies themselves that will be able to determine what the space is. But I just reflect to go back on the previous question that you raised. Are some people feeling threatened? I mean, we have to acknowledge, yes, we are very traditional and a bit old-fashioned.
Exactly.
So it's a great honor in many countries to be in the Red Cross top level. So there is an issue of power and prestige more than contents, which might feel a little bit difficult to give up. So you move. And that's why if these particular leaders themselves decide to take the lead on giving a better image of the society, if you can reach them and motivate them to be part of this, exercise a bit of peer pressure. So it's not come, but you look at what the others are doing and then you say, oh, maybe I have to follow as well. So I think that's one way you overcome the fact that, but also accept we are at very different levels. But interestingly now, in the Red Cross, but actually also in the business life, they have measured the same thing, that the region where we are moving most fast now at seeing women stepping forward and saying, okay, here's an opportunity for us, one, to support each other as women, but also to work for change, is the Americas. Yeah. Europe is a bit complacent, of course. We think the job is done, which is not correct. Asia, some parts are very dynamic. As you remember, the Pacific took a big leap in their regional meeting. But it's very interesting. You can really feel the vibration from the Americas. They see this as an opportunity for women to really take charge, because they have many challenges as national societies. And they badly need, I think, a sense of how do we change, how we develop our societies and all this. And we will see what happens. I look forward to see how the conference will work out.
Yes, the conference is another issue, but I'm optimistic also for the conference, not only for the General Assembly. I think that even in the conference there is a good commitment coming from the colleagues of the IFRC, the members of the Standing Commission. So we are ready for the change, and we will see the result.
Yes.
So,
it's a test now.
Exactly. A few months, and we will know the truth.
Yeah.
If we are enough mature, to move forward.
President Rocca was mentioning about the network. That brings us on to an initiative taken a year ago or something like that, and you were at least part of the initiative, or even the founder of the initiative. Please tell us, Margareta.
Well, I think the only thing I did two things. One, I invited all the senior women for a networking lunch in Antalya, which amazingly has never happened before, such a simple idea. But then once we had this spirit in Antalya at the General Assembly, we have to do something, because they could see that there were very few women in the total governance lineup. So with the help of some colleagues, we got the resolution going. Many people, of course, took the responsibility for that. But I think the key was when we came home and we were sitting here and said, okay, nice, but if nobody does anything, it will be as usual. We'll have another resolution that no one follows up. So that's when we decided, let's try to set up a network. And we work electronically, and then we invited as many people as possible to come to Stockholm to decide what are we going to do. And of course, when you get 25 enthusiastic people together, you have a very long list of things that you can do. But I try to say we will not succeed if we don't have a very simple, achievable objective. So we agreed on only two things. One, we will work to change sort of the face of the global governance of the Federation and the movement, IFRC, Standing Commission, Council of Delegates, etc. And we will run hard for 2019 and 2021 to see if it works. Secondly, we will support women in finding the space. And we will also support to build a pipeline of women who in the future will be willing to run for governance beyond 2021. So now we have 80 national societies in the network linked to it, participating, and we've been doing our first workshop to practice how to sit in governance and test. We're doing newsletters, we are going to every regional conference and introducing the ideas and asking people to take the lead. So we're trying to keep an active engagement. So it's a network.
Yeah, no, and it is working. It is working and it's well appreciated. The feedback that I'm having are very, very good. I think that what we have to do a bit more, because on one hand there is this very good network of women, on the other hand I think it is important to work with the men that must be involved and engaged and committed, maybe sometime to lead the change at statutory level in their own national societies, to open the door, to have more engagement. And what I have to underline, and this is a trick on which I pay a lot of attention, is about, of course, it is important, and Margareta underlined it very clearly, but I want to do it also. When it comes to governance and when it comes to management, I think if we look at the management, of course, we have a long path to do together, but part of this has been done. So we are on the right track, I feel. At the governance level is completely different. Here the path is still at the beginning, because it's the cultural one, and on this I think we must be focused, because in too many occasions we think that having the Secretary General represented, then all the board is composed by men, there are no spaces. So this is how we have to work and change these aspects of the way of life. First. Second, I hope, because in the Federation we had women as a president in my position in the past. I think that now maybe Peter is expiring in the ICRC. I don't think there have ever been so. His mandate expired in 3 years. So let's see. That could arrive also a very strong signal, also from the ICRC. Why not? So because they identified the next one. So it's this could be an encouraging signal coming also from our friends and colleagues. So it's part. Our family is on the move, really. Is on the move. Now we will see during the statutory meetings the first results, but we cannot remain as we were. We have to change, we have to adapt, and to do this we do need more inclusion, of more fair representation. This is something that is extremely important. This is why at the end, so in this moment is a bigger, but it's another challenge. Is another challenge that we have in the Federation, but I think the diversity policy is extremely important. Will be the next step.
Absolutely.
This is
we will use this. We test this to make sure that behind it also follows the diversity in a much broader.
Exactly.
You know, I would say that first, there are already many men who have actually not declared support, but also done things very concretely to demonstrate that change is possible. What I would hope is that they would come out and more clearly say, yes, we are doing it. So that's what I hope. One of the things I hope they will report at the assembly is that we did this, we did this, we did this, like Javier did in Spanish Red Cross, like the leaders of the Pacific have done, that they actually stepped forward and said, we took this seriously. Not like the previous 40, 50 years, but this time we realized that it's up to us national societies to change the reality here. So that, and you know, the Standing Commission is the one that probably has had more presidents or chair, I think, than either Federation or ICRC. So I know that the pressure is on in ICRC as well. Maybe Peter hasn't felt it yet, but I think he will hear it from us. because that's an interesting, we can imagine, but there have been senior women, one president in the federation that we've had for one period. I think all in all, the Standing Commission has the best track record, strangely enough, because there was a time when there were many more women in the Standing Commission. But I think the aim for us is the Federation also should have a... I cannot predict, but for now the test will be on the nomination to the commissions. If we just get more women candidates, that's already a good sign, and it looks quite good. We are collecting information to see where it's going, just to... Because I think also our commissions, the Federation Commission, are so important for the future of the Federation. The quality of the work they do, the quality of the thinking that they present, are critical in a way tests also to see, going back to your first question, does it matter? And in a way we will have to take all this also with us as we move forward.
Good. Finally, you have made quite a few important statements and also given us some challenging words. But could you, to wrap up, try to be a little bit tougher? Give us a challenge, give a challenge to us, give a challenge to the movement in terms of gender equality.
It's really to move from the statements, declaration to concrete acts. This is something, time has come for this. It's time to open. Red Cross, Red Crescent is not anymore what I said, the expression of prominent families or royal families. If we want, as it was the dream of our founder, Reunion, a mirror of our society, the best expression of our society, because this was the exact word, the best expression of the society, we have to reach the gender parity. This is extremely important, and we will achieve it with mandatory issues and severe measure in the next future. It's extremely important to open our mind, but if not, we will encourage also through concrete administrative measures.
Well, as a national society, I can say that we will follow your guidance here. Just to go back to the issue of the broader diversity, we've said that we will take stronger measures in regard to how we achieve our broader diversity, because we are quite good at women's leadership in the organization, both management and governance. But instead, our commitment will be to keep working on the diversity issue.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing your views with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.